Hey guys, my name is Brandon and welcome to or welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you like what you see in here, you're more than welcome to hit the subscribe button so you stay notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, let's get straight on with today's video. Hey everyone and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So on today's video I'm going to be doing a review to the 9th episode of the Traitors UK Series 2. We are getting very close to the end. We have 9 people left. No, we have 8 people left, apologies. We have 8 people left in the game. So I'm just going to kind of reveal how we got from 10 to 8. So as of the last episode where we left you, we had 2 traitors, Harry, Andrew. We had 8 faithful, Charlie, Charlotte, Ross, Molly, Zach, Jazz, Evie and Jasmine. At the beginning of episode 9, obviously, Harry basically said to Andrew, you've now literally committed your first murder, like how does it feel? You'll kind of get used to it. And Charlotte and Evie were the first 2 to come back for breakfast, and Evie basically said she's happy to at least be here for another day. Charlotte said she's obviously close to Paul, and you know, she kind of had that as a reason to go against Paul, just to kind of be like, well hang on, why are you being so nice to me? Why are you saving me? There maybe is a reason why he's keeping her in the game, so that's why he kind of had to go. And she says that she's also kind of a little bit suspicious of Jazz, because, well, I think she said she was suspicious of Jasmine because Jasmine chose Jazz at first and then she kind of voted for Paul, so she kind of switched votes. I think she's suspicious of Jazz as well, but I think she was suspicious of Jasmine just purely because she changed her vote. Molly came back and she basically said, well, hopefully Harry's still here, because obviously he's a traitor hunter. He managed to find 2 of the traitors, not knowing that obviously he is a traitor, so obviously he knows exactly who they are. And Harry basically explained that he's got Andrew on side as a baby traitor. He's going to kind of train him up to work out how to play the game. And I think out of all of the traitors so far, Harry has played the game probably the best so far. Charlotte thought that either her or Harry were going to be killed purely because they're both getting involved with the game. And Ross basically said that if he was going to have an acting role for his next film, he's going to go straight to Paul to recruit him for that role because he acted very well as a faithful, but obviously it then turned out that he wasn't a faithful. In terms of who wasn't going to come back for breakfast, we found out it was either going to be Jazz, Charlie or Zach. One of the 3 of them were going to be murdered. And Jasmine basically said that Zach would be the clever one to get rid of purely because, you know, he kind of has said lots of strange things and there's a lot of people that he's on the radar of, so it kind of just makes sense to get rid of him. In the end, Jazz and Zach came back, so that meant that Charlie was murdered. Harry basically explained to Andrew that people would now look at Charlotte, because obviously Charlotte and Charlie were quite close in there, so maybe it's like a friend has turned against a friend. And he basically said, in terms of their job as a traitor, it's kind of just to get everyone else to fight each other. And Molly said that she feels awful about Charlie leaving, because if you remember from the glass shatter game, Molly won the shield, and it was between Molly and Charlie, so if Charlie would have got the shield, Molly wouldn't have gone out, so Molly basically said that she felt really bad. And she basically looked at Harry and said that he was probably the best choice of person to go, purely because he's done so well so far, and obviously he's doing, you know, a really good job getting the traitors out, so surely the traitors would have got him out, so that kind of obviously in her head didn't make sense. And they basically said that keeping Harry in was very odd unless it was Charlotte, and she obviously doesn't want to, you know, put herself on the radar. And Charlotte basically explained why would they keep 2 people who brought down a traitor. And then in terms of the mission, Claudia came in and said, do you guys want to have a look at my holiday rental, eat a lot? That was kind of her hint. And Charlotte basically said when they went back to the house that they feel like she feels like they're all psychopaths because they've all dealt with death so easily. Jasmine was having a chat with Evie, Jazz, Zach and Molly, and she said, well, Evie said that there's at least 2 traitors. I think Jazz and Molly were having a brief chat and he basically said, we'll chat later, because I think he was obviously going to reveal different information and he kind of didn't really trust anyone. So he basically said to Molly, we'll chat later, don't worry about it. And then Jazz had a chat with Evie and Zach. He said the 2 people he's worried about are obviously Ross, kind of deflecting from the Paul situation, and Jazz basically said that he told 3 people about his situation with Paul. Jasmine and Zach both stayed loyal, Paul broke that trust, so Paul was kind of the only one he doesn't trust. Zach explained to Jazz that he thinks potentially it's Harry, and he basically no, Jazz said to Zach and Evie that he thinks it's Harry, and Evie said that Harry was close to Paul at that particular time. So I think they kind of all here were kind of, I think Zach said to Jazz and Jazz said to Zach that they potentially both think it could be Harry, and Evie said that Harry just happened to be close to Paul at the time. So I think here Jazz was kind of hoping that other people were going to be on his side, but they just kind of thought it was a coincidence, or that he was kind of like a mind reader. Charlotte explained to Harry and Ross that Jasmine's been going for her the last few days. Jasmine and Molly were actually listening outside the door. Charlotte basically said, yeah, she doesn't trust Jasmine, there's something about her. And Jasmine basically said to the camera that Charlotte's obsessed with her, and her mouth is always filled with Jasmine's name. Jasmine said that she's obviously suspicious of Charlotte and Jazz. Molly said that Charlotte would be a good person to recruit purely because of the way that she is. And Charlotte said potentially the traitors wanted to get Charlie murdered to obviously break up the friendship of Charlie and Charlotte. And Jasmine kind of asked if she was able to, have that kind of discussion now. And Charlotte said, no, we're going to save that information for the round table. Otherwise it would just seem like gossip. And it would kind of give Jasmine a way to kind of deflect on the evidence and kind of find a way to react to the way that Charlotte's fought back. So instead of having that discussion where kind of not everyone is actually there and she can't speak up for herself, at the round table where it probably matters the most is where you can obviously have that chat. So obviously with the challenge, Evie said to Charlotte and Jazz, obviously a log cabin in the woods doesn't exactly sound like a good thing, and good stuff doesn't usually happen there. And Harry basically explained to Molly and Andrew there was lots of drama between Charlotte and Jasmine. Molly basically said about Charlotte that if she's a faithful, she doesn't need to keep mentioning it. Obviously you're a faithful, and if you keep saying something, it's likely to kind of not be believed. In terms of the team mission, they basically had to find gold as a group and obviously escape at the end. There was also one shield to be found as well, and only 5 people were allowed in the tunnel at a time. So remember, we've only got 9 people left because we've lost Charlie now. So Ross basically said he was more than happy to let other people go down in the tunnel first. He's kind of a little bit scared of that sort of thing. Harry also said he's claustrophobic. And I think at first, Molly, Jazz, Andrew, Charlotte and Harry were the 5 that went down into the tunnel. And Andrew basically said that he was a little bit too big, kind of got a bit nervous or whatever. So he came out, and I think that's when Ross, I think, went in. Obviously when basically what happened was there was 5 people crawling through a tunnel trying to look for gold, being directed by the team in the cabin. Like I said, that was that one secret shield that they found later on. But what happened with the lights is what Ross discovered is that if you hold the button of the light, there's no light in the cabin, but there's light in the tunnel. If you let go of the lights, there's no light in the tunnel and there's light in the cabin. So basically they had to kind of give equal sides, both amount of light, so that the people in the cabin could read the map and that the people in the tunnel could actually then go through the tunnel. So it was a very weird thing to find, but I think it was quite funny because every so often Ross was like, oh, should we just tease them a little bit? Should we just, take the light away? So yeah, Andrew came out because he was claustrophobic. And then Claudia basically asked the team in the cabin, who needs the light more, you guys or them? Evie said, well, we need to read the map. So, I guess both sides are just as important. You do need to see where you're going in the tunnel, but at the same time, if you just close your eyes and just focus on, just touching the walls like a blind person, you should be okay to get through. Jasmine said that, Charlotte went straight in, and although they kind of had their bit of disagreement or whatever, she's glad that it's in Charlotte's skill set. Harry got an extra £2,000, so the 4 people that he was with in the tunnel kind of went to the next stage. He spent quite a while unscrewing the bolt and he added money to the pot. Charlotte basically said to them for them to imagine that it's like a mud bar, so it's kind of like a spa as opposed to like a tunnel with, gunk and stuff. She then entered a room with the skeleton, and that's where the shield was, but obviously in the dark you can't really see anything, and it's also quite difficult to find because the shield is quite small. And she said, if there's a shield in there, I'm getting the shield, I'm desperate. And obviously the rest of them, she kind of just wasn't able to get the shield at this point, so they've all moved on to the next bit. Again, Harry's at the back. He then went into the room, he saw the chain, and he grabbed the shield. Molly kind of whispered to him, well done, babe. And I think he basically just told her to just be quiet, kind of to keep it a secret. So obviously at this point, Molly doesn't know Harry's a traitor. Harry kind of knows now that he's stopped a faithful from being able to save themselves, so kind of anyone is up for being murdered. And I think he kind of just didn't want Charlotte to get it, because either her or Jasmine were going to obviously get murdered that night. Evie was the only one that wasn't able to go through the tunnel, because obviously you need to have one person holding the light for the rest to go through. So she was the only one that didn't go through, so they lost 1,000. The other 3 guys got out. So in total they added 6,000 to the pot, but we take away the 1,000 that Evie lost, so they got £5,000 added to the pot. And then obviously at the end of the challenge, Claudia basically said the shield was taken, and if anyone wanted to step forward and kind of reveal that, then they were able to. No one did. Charlotte looked around and kind of said, oh, who got it, as if like, oh my god, I didn't get it, but someone did. Who's sneaky enough to grab it? And Molly basically said, like, to the camera that she saw Harry get the shield. It's not a bad thing it being kept a secret, as long as he obviously, I guess, reveals it later on. In terms of the game, Ross kind of said some people can handle it, some people obviously can't. Jazz explained to Evie and Charlotte that the worst part of obviously having the shield is that the traitor could obviously take it away from them. And Charlotte said to Ross when they got back into the house that she was going to have a shower before him, and you see him sprint up to the shower before her. And she also said, I don't know who got the shield, but I guess she was kind of maybe angry that she didn't get it, but also disappointed that they just didn't reveal it. I guess there's only 9 people left, so at that point, do you want to reveal you've got this kind of, you know, secret thing, potentially being a target at the round table, or you kind of just leave it, let them try and attack you, but you know in your head that they can't even get you out? Evie basically said she was suspicious of everybody. Jazz asked Charlotte if she voted for Miles at the round table, and she said yes, she actually voted for every single traitor. So at least once she voted for any of the traitors. She didn't really go for anyone else randomly, or she didn't go away from the crowd. She always went for a traitor. And Ross basically said that Harry would be a good enough player to be a traitor. He actually mentioned this to Evie, Charlotte and Jazz, obviously all 3 of them traitors as well. So, you know, although they may potentially think Ross is a traitor, he's been very honest here, saying, you know, potentially Harry could be a traitor. Jazz has also said the same thing, but I don't think Ross and Jazz have had that conversation yet, because I think Jazz is still going for Ross, and I think Ross is still going for Jazz. Jazz basically said he needs to be strategic with the information that he has. He's not going to share everything with everyone. Jasmine kind of asked who got the shield. Harry said he saw Charlotte see it, but he didn't actually see whether she got it or not. And Andrew basically explained that he needed to get rid of Jazz because he's the only person at the moment who's suspecting that Andrew is a traitor. Harry basically said to Jazz and Zach that he told them that he trusted them both, and he also told them that he got the shield, as if like making out he's a faithful and, oh god, what a relief, I'm going to be safe. And Zach said that Harry's the only one that he can trust at the moment. So I think out of the final 9 people, the fact that Zach is trusting Harry shows that Harry and Zach are quite close. I guess Jazz being there as well, I guess is a bit of a weird one, because he kind of doesn't really trust Harry. But then also Harry and Molly are quite close. She knows Harry's little secret of having the shield, but it's whether or not she's going to share it, or whether or not he's going to share it, or whether or not he will just backstab her and just kind of get her out of the game. Because then it's like, oh my god, who got rid of Molly, kind of thing. And they'll be like, well, hang on, it definitely wasn't Harry, so there'll be even more deflection away from himself. Anyway, next to the round table, Jasmine was first, and she basically, before the table came to light, she said that she feels like her name's going to be brought up, but she knows that she can back herself. Harry said he wanted to take a step back, kind of sit out, let everyone else talk amongst themselves. And Charlotte said with the previous votes of round tables, it was usually about 6 or 7 votes to get someone out, and now with the less amount of people that they've got, it's usually 3. It's going to be 3 or 4 votes, and then someone's eliminated. Zach and Charlotte had their chat first. So I think Zach basically said that he potentially thinks Charlotte is a traitor purely because he was close with Paul. And she basically said that, you know, Paul obviously was going to choose someone close to him, but every single person that has been a traitor has had an argument with Paul. Charlotte hasn't had an argument with him. She's been close with him, but she hasn't had a disagreement with him. And she actually added that she thinks Jasmine potentially got recruited because her kind of behaviour has changed. And then her votes for Paul and Jazz obviously switched. Jasmine said that in terms of her vote for Paul and Jazz, she never said she was 100% on voting for Jazz. She was kind of half and half, but I guess kind of what you hear at the round table, what you hear other people talking about, that's going to kind of influence you. So yeah, half the table went for Paul, half the table went for Jazz, pretty much. And she basically kind of replied back and said, well, actually Charlotte's being suspicious, to continue saying that she's always a faithful. And Charlotte was basically like, well, hang on, I'm going to stick up for myself. I'm not going to just let someone attack me and me not stick up for myself. And she basically said that she has voted for every single traitor so far. She's very passionate and she works hard in all of the challenges. And if that kind of shows traitor vibes, then she's obviously sorry about that. But she has actually had a clean slate and she's never had a vote in the round table. Molly also kind of asked Charlotte potentially if she would go against Charlie, and kind of what happened there in terms of like, did Charlotte kind of want to go against Charlie, or because she was the latest recruit, was that kind of her initiation to get rid of someone that she liked? And she said that she would never recruit Charlie because, you know, she's terrible, so she couldn't even sit at a table, so she wasn't going to recruit her to become a traitor. And then Molly kind of had an accusation for Jazz as well, saying that he always wanted to go for private chats with her. Again, his reaction was kind of, well, you know, you can't trust anyone in this game. You kind of want to get advice from those people that you trust as one-on-one to kind of see how genuine they are. And then Andrew agreed and said he also has the private chats too. So, you know, kind of sticking up for Jazz there, saying, actually, I think you're genuinely a traitor, genuinely a faithful. Zach explained to Jasmine that, again, there was a bit of suspicion there with the whole Paul situation. And she basically explained that she was a little bit more suspicious of Paul way before she became suspicious of Jazz, and that's the only reason she went for Paul. She said she confidently switched and just went with her gut feeling, so it's not like she did anything in a malicious way. She wasn't trying to copy anyone. She just 1 minute said, I think Paul's a traitor. I also think Jazz is a traitor, but I think Paul's that little bit more of a traitor, so that's why I voted for him. That's kind of how she explained that. And she was kind of picked up by Zach, that she never even mentioned that she had an inkling of Paul being a traitor, and then just all of a sudden changed her vote. And she basically said she's not going to share every thought that she has. And she basically said, well, I'm not going to tell you every single thing, like every single thought I've got in my head. There are going to be some things I keep to myself, some things you might share with 1 or 2 players, some things you might share with nobody. So it kind of just depends in that moment who you feel like you can trust. When it came down to the votes, Jazz got 1 vote, Jasmine got 2 votes, but with 6 votes, it was Charlotte that became banished. She obviously revealed herself as a faithful. Everyone was obviously in shock, kind of thinking that she potentially could have been a traitor. And the final vote was actually from Ross, and he basically was like, oh, I've also voted for Charlotte, and she kind of just butted in here saying, look, there's no point trying to save the day at this point. Like, I know I'm going home, that's it, the game's over. Like, you know, don't even try and rub it in my face anymore. And Harry basically said to Zach, just before Charlotte revealed that she was a faithful, that he didn't even know about this one. So he even wasn't 100% sure. Zach also said, I'm not too sure either. Harry then said that she did do a lot of traitorish things. Jasmine said that people are suspicious of her for speaking up, but that's just kind of the way she is. And Jasmine said to Zach in the kitchen that the fact that she didn't tell anyone she was going to vote for Paul, it's not a bad thing. It's not that she, you know, is kind of hiding anything. She just kind of didn't feel like she needed to kind of share that information. Ross was having a chat with Harry, Evie and Andrew, saying that potentially the Traitors could have received and recruited a scapegoat to the team, and then obviously kind of just get rid of them. So they were obviously thinking back to Paul. Who's Paul going to recruit? Who's Paul going to bring into the team? Because obviously they knew he was a traitor. And then Evie kind of said the same thing about Harry, because he managed to get Miles and Paul. So the fact that he was a good kind of detective almost, they probably would have recruited someone like Harry because they know he's good at obviously being a faithful. But from what Evie and the rest of them don't know is that he's been a traitor for the whole of the game. Evie also added that potentially Jasmine has a bit of a controlled defence, so the way that she acted around the round table was kind of, again, a little bit strange. And Ross said that Jasmine has some personality traits that kind of give off that she's potentially a traitor as well. Everyone left the kitchen. It was just Harry and Andrew, and Harry just quickly managed to say to Andrew, look, it feels good, doesn't it? As in, like, you know, we've got another one of them out, and, you know, we're one step closer. Andrew, Jazz, Molly and Harry were also having a chat, and I think Jazz here said that Ross potentially has been recruited by Paul, and I think this is just kind of off the evidence that they all keep mentioning, that they've got evidence or something to do with that. And they also he also added that nobody's going to suspect Ross. And then he kind of also said Ross and Harry are both on his radar. I'm not sure if he revealed that to that group, but I think he said to the camera that both Ross and Harry are on the radar. So although Harry was in that little group of them discussing about Ross, he's kind of also not 100% set with Harry being 100% faithful. Obviously, the clock struck midnight, and then obviously the rest of them left the house. Molly quickly whispered to Harry saying, I'm happy for you, and kind of said, is he going to tell the rest of them tomorrow about the shield? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, he basically said to her that she'd be absolutely fine and that, you know, she wasn't going to be going anywhere. So again, at this point, is he genuinely going to keep that friendship with her, or potentially is this his moment to kind of, you know, get her out of the game? But then he's kind of losing someone he's in a close team with. but that is one less faithful that he has to worry about later on switching back on him. So it's a bit of a weird one. He could potentially have got rid of Molly, but who knows at this point. Anyway, the two traitors had a chat, so both Andrew and Harry had a chat with each other, and Harry basically said that they're doing the work for the traitors. They're kind of all having a go at each other, and obviously it was 3 faithfuls that are up for nomination at the round table: Jazz, Jasmine and Charlotte. Harry and Andrew's names weren't even mentioned. Andrew said it kind of wasn't really any benefit to recruit, they should just get rid of another faithful. And Harry basically told Andrew his secret is that he actually got the shield. He said if they were to recruit, then it would become 3-3 in terms of 3 traitors and 3 people left once they murder someone else, rather than it being 2 traitors and 4 people in the final 6. So they both kind of agreed Jasmine could be a good idea, potentially Ross could be a good idea, and that other players would turn against Ross before he turns against them. And basically in the end they decided they'd invite Ross to become a traitor, and obviously it was up to him to whether accept or decline. Claudia had a little joke basically saying, oh, you're recruiting another man just like the olden days, and Andrew basically replied and said no, it's based on strategy. They think because of the way that Ross has played the game, the type of character that he is, he will obviously work well as a traitor, and I think he will. And I think obviously he's in that stage now where I guess he wants to kind of, you know, help his mum by like continuing the game and going forward. He said they basically agreed that they wanted to recruit Ross purely because he is smart and strategic. This was in the letter that he received, and he said that he doesn't want to say no. He doesn't want to say yes because obviously the traitors got rid of his mum from the game, but he also doesn't want to get murdered. So he basically said, I'll join them, go on then. It gives him control, and if you can't beat them, join them. So basically Ross is the 6th traitor that we've had in the game. So right at the beginning we had Harry, we had Paul, we had Ash, lost Ash. Harry and Paul recruited Miles, we lost Miles. Harry and Paul, weird situation at the table, recruited Andrew. Harry got rid of Paul, now Harry and Andrew have now recruited Ross. So we've only had 1 female as the traitor, all 5 guys, the rest of them, but let's see what happens here. Andrew said to Harry, Andrew said when Ross came in, that Harry and Paul recruited him. Ross basically said to Harry, don't do what you did to the other 2 traitors to myself, that I don't want that happening. And he also showed Ross that he won the shield, again, to stop the faithfuls from getting that. And basically Ross wasn't going to reveal here that Diane was actually his mum, but he just wanted to know why she was out of the game. And he basically just said, why did you murder Diane? And then Harry basically said she was getting too brave and someone had to put her in her place. And then Ross basically said, you know, I'm glad I finally got an answer, but I will take revenge. You know, I'll kind of do what I need to do, you know, to get as far as I can in the game. So I think there's going to be some sort of battle between Harry and Ross. I think Andrew's kind of just there for the long run. I don't know how long he's going to stay in the game for, but I think Ross and Harry, obviously Harry is like, oh yeah, we're going to get Ross out, like he's here as bait and da-da-da. Ross, I guess, has some weird way of playing the game, but at the same time, yeah, he's kind of doing this for his mum. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens next. But like I said, there are 8 people left. We now have 3 traitors: Harry, Andrew, Ross. We now have 5 faithfuls: Molly, Zach, Jazz, Evie and Jasmine. So without further ado, episode 10 will be coming very soon. But yeah, what do you think of the final 8? What do you think's happening next? And who would you like to see win the show? But until then, thank you very much for watching, and until my next review, thank you for watching and goodbye.